UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the United Federation of Podcast Network. I'm your host for today, Justin Oser, and join with me are my co-hosts who I am doing a deep atomic scan on. We have Chrissie De Clerck-Szilagyi and Brandon Shamatala. So Brandon, tell me, is it okay because you're shedding if I try to peel off a part of your face?
Yes, you can. Just don't take too much, and make sure you give me some facial cream afterwards. I'm curious, though, why are you dressed as a human spermazoa?
It's for some really important medical stuff I can't talk about. Good. I don't know how you know that. And Chrissie, as the oracle of the mess hall, or maybe the oracle of your university, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. As I was just saying before the podcast, it's grading time, hitting finals, and then I'll be able to breathe in about a week and a half. So
yeah, and Discovery episodes will keep coming so that when you have that time, you can watch them, 10 times, if you want.
Yeah, more than twice, anyway.
Definitely, so that's great. Okay, so also join with us today, we have a special guest. It's Peter Gao, who's a Sagan Fellow at the University of California at Santa Cruz. Peter, welcome to Infinite Diversity.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I've heard you a number of times on Mike Wong's Strange New World Science and Star Trek podcast, which I feel like I reference just about every week here, but I love the podcast. And yeah, and I've heard you, Peter, on the podcast talking about some of your work and also talking about Discovery and other Star Trek stuff. But since this is the first time on this podcast, tell our listeners about your kind of work in planetary science.
Yeah, so I'm a postdoctoral researcher at UC Santa Cruz, as you said. My primary research focus is looking at the atmospheres and formation of planets beyond Earth, be it planets in the solar system or exoplanets, planets beyond the solar system. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So hopefully Discovery is giving you some stuff to think about with some of the planets they have. Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially this week, too.
Mm-hmm.
If we get to that, yeah.
Completely tangential question for Peter here. What do you think about all this recently declassified UFO footage?
That's wow! Starting off with a really hard one. I think, well, they're obviously real. I think they are 100% real. In fact, I actually worked at NASA as another postdoc a couple of years ago, so I know what I'm talking about, and they are absolutely real.
Cool. I mean, do you have any footage or images you can break some news here? No.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're all points of light.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I saw that footage and I'm like, what's going on?
Very strange.
I think that also because we have you on here, Peter, just in the honor of science and whatnot, we should all take a moment of silence here and remember the telescope in Puerto Rico that has recently collapsed.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was sad. So listeners might know the Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico, which has been, I think, doing some great work for the past, I think it's 57 years or something like that. It had some structural issues and collapsed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was sad to see. Any thoughts on that, Peter, since we brought it up?
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely it's tragic, and unfortunately, it's a sign of funding issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's controlled by the NSF, the National Science Foundation, and so I guess they haven't been doing a good upkeep of it. And as you saw, actually, this wasn't the first bad thing that's happened in the last couple of months. There were smaller scale collapses around the dish, and this was just the final straw. There is a petition going around on Twitter about people, wanting to build a new one, which I think would be amazing. So hopefully that will happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, on that note, so Peter, I also wanted to ask you, again, since it's your first time on the podcast, for you to just tell our listeners a little bit about your history with Star Trek.
Yeah, so I started off with Star Trek Voyager. I arrived right at the tail end of season 6. So I tuned in. It was a fun space show. I really enjoyed it. And then I got to Unimatrix Zero Part 1, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. The captain's assimilated. What happens now? And Voyager was the first show, any show, that I followed as a fan. And so I didn't actually understand the concept of seasons, like show seasons. I was like 13 or 14 at the time. And so I thought, okay, next week there will be the conclusion of this. But next week, of course, it went back to a rerun. And I remember very specifically they showed Riddles. Season 6 episode when Tuvok lost his marbles, and I was super confused. And eventually realized what was happening. Another point of confusion was that Voyager was also syndicating at the same time on other channels, and so half the time we'll be watching a Janeway with a bun and Kes hanging out in the background, and half the time we'll be watching 7 of 9 hang out with the Janeway hairdo in the later seasons. And I had no idea which happens first. And so for a really long time, I thought, the Kes episodes, they must happen after the 7 episodes for some reason. But eventually, I figured that out. So that's how I got started. I eventually went on to really knee deep in the fandom. I was on Trek BBS. I know that's still around, but I haven't really touched it in a long time. But I think I posted like 18,000 posts on that thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like knee deep in it. And then I left by the time Enterprise ended, because at that point it kind of just devolved into let's just say that way.
Proto Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Just endless arguments about canon issues, supposed canon issues the Enterprise had. But since then, I've been following the movies, the new shows, clearly, and just been having a great time.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's always interesting to see how people first get exposed to Star Trek and what that's like. So that's really cool. So, and now here you are talking about a Discovery Season 3 episode. But before we do that, we do have a couple of news items here. So the first one comes from TrekCore, where Mike McMahon talked a little bit about Lower Decks Season 2. So, of course, Season 1 had just finished right before Discovery, so not that long ago, but they've been working on Season 2. And he did have a few things to say about it. This is just a quote. He says, "I can tell you right now, we're so knee-deep in production. Not only is it all written, but I've gotten episode 209 to watch over this week in animatic format, and we have already sent the first 4 episodes to coloring departments." So that's cool. They've done a lot of work on it. And I think he was reconfirming also that I think Jonathan Frakes will be back as the Titan captain. I guess we think maybe at least for the first episode of Season 2. And that the Packlids that we saw in No Small Parts would also be returning and would be important to the show. And there's a couple of other tidbits in the article, but just wanted to get your guys' thought on that. Sounds like they're pretty deep into it. So, Peter, actually, I'm just curious maybe what you thought of Lower Decks briefly and what you think of this news.
Oh, I loved it. It clearly is a gift to the fans. I loved all the references that I could pick out, and then afterwards going to Trek Core and Trek Movie, trying to find all the references I missed. And it's just, and some of those deep cuts are just ridiculously deep. And overall, the humor is great, and I just think all the characters have so many quirks and so many interesting foibles, and so a lot of fun. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So, Brandon, what do you think about this, that they're so kind of far along with Season 2?
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to more. It was such an interesting experience discussing this show, because on one hand, I'm like, this is a whole heck of a lot of fun. And then I'm sitting here talking about it, and I'm like, I think that oh geez, I can't remember her name now. What's Tawny Newsom's character?
Mariner.
I'm like, Mariner's the worst character in Starfleet history. You know, like, so like discussing it as like a podcast discussion on what's going on through the lens of all the other Star Trek discussions we have. I like hate this crew, but just sitting down and watching it, I'm like, this is fantastic and it's hilarious and it's a whole lot of fun. So it was like a very bizarre experience for 10 weeks, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
But it sounds like maybe if they're that far along, maybe later in 2021 or something like that.
Hopefully.
That we'll actually see it.
I mean, you know, technically, I mean, I don't know what the heck happened with TV, but you remember those days when we got 26 episodes every year? And it happened every year? Like, you know, we should be able to get seasons every year. I still don't understand that concept, you know, aside from COVID.
Well, there's a bunch of reasons why that, and we don't need to get into that, but I don't think you're going to see 26 episodes seasons of Star Trek again.
So 13 should be at least 75% of work, right? Because the special effects are, you know, more challenging now, right? So we should still be able to get a season every year.
Sure, that would be my fantasy, but I don't think that's happening because things are a lot more expensive. They take longer to shoot them and all that stuff. But anyway.
Well, and there's the continuing stories, too. We were getting 26 episodes of reset buttons, so makes a difference.
For the most part, yeah. So what do you think about this, Chrissy, with news about Season 2 of Lower Decks?
Bring it, please.
Yeah.
Just okay. I want to see it right now.
And I'm Peter, you may not know this, but I had quite a lot of difficulty with Lower Decks Season 1 with the humor and some of the things that were going on. So I approached this a bit of trepidation, and I didn't quite like the Pac-Lads as a villain in this finale. But you know what? I'm going to watch it. I'm going to keep an open mind, and it's just exciting that there's all this stuff coming because we know that they're shooting Discovery Season 4 and Strange New Worlds is going to start shooting, and then, you know, we'll probably have Section 31 and Prodigy and Picard Season 2 and all this stuff. So I think there's more than enough for everybody, it seems.
Still crossing my fingers for that Khan miniseries.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens because last news was a couple years ago. But so anyway, I think we'll post a link in the show notes to the Trek Core article, right? Yeah.
Already waiting for it.
Oh, cool. So yeah, you can read more about that. So one other piece of news, which is that, Creation had already, I think, you know, canceled Star Trek Las Vegas this year and kind of pushed things to August for what they're calling the 55-year mission in Vegas. But they actually announced some regional cons that'll be happening for Star Trek that are in Vancouver, Canada, Edison, New Jersey, and it looks like Jacksonville, Florida. So, and I think that's coming. The one in Vancouver should be July, and the ones in New Jersey and Florida in September. I mean, assuming they're able to do that. But I know, Brandon, you were excited about the Vancouver one, right?
I am super excited about the Vancouver one because you have no idea, like where I am in Saskatchewan, how difficult it is to get to Las Vegas. It's very challenging with flights and stuff. Like Regina doesn't have a lot of good flights. So I am very much looking forward to this. If it can be a big convention like that, being in Canada, you know, it's exciting. I know people in Vancouver, so maybe I can stay with some people instead of having to rent a hotel. So this is a whole lot of excitement for me. So.
Because the Creation used to do a lot of regional conventions, but that kind of tapered off over the years, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I started going to the STLV conventions in 2012, and you know, so I guess it was 2012 that I went to my first STLV convention, and I've only ever known of them doing that for Star Trek. Everything else has been like other types of fandom.
And maybe it's just regional ones in the U.S. I never got a chance to go to those. But Peter, what do you think about this news that they're going to have some kind of conventions in addition to the one in Vegas again?
Yeah, I mean, July, I don't know if that's optimistic about, the pandemic, but hopefully by that time it'll work. I'm actually not a huge convention goer. I didn't go to any conventions until my friend Mike basically took me to the first one. He's an avid convention goer. And
I've seen him at several STLVs actually.
Yeah, there we go. I think actually we went to one in Chicago. I forgot the year, like 2014, 2015, something like that. And it was right before one of the scientific conferences that we went to, so it was perfect timing. And yeah, it was enormous. And also seeing all these actors for the first time in real life was kind of mind blowing and surreal. But I'm glad they're spreading it out across the country, across the continent, really, right? Giving more regional fans a chance to go. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And what do you think, Chrissy?
Yes, please. Get one in Detroit.
I know, it's like, let's get one nearby. Let's have one in El Paso too. I mean, but yeah, everybody will want one near their town. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to this. I might be able to go, maybe to one of them. I haven't been to a proper convention since I was 13.
Oh wow!
I think
so.
Yeah,
been a little while.
Yeah, just a bit. Was in Detroit. Shatner was there, and he was like so far away. He was there.
Awesome.
Yeah. So no. I hope this indicates that they're going to be moving. I mean, STLV is wonderful, but if you have some ones that are separated out in other parts of the country, that's going to allow people who wouldn't otherwise get the opportunity to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah. So okay, that's good. Yeah. But yeah, again, hopefully things will be such in the world that people can kind of safely go there. All right.
Yeah, I think we're going to be good on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not turn us into the coronavirus podcast.
All right, so let's get into our discussion of Discovery Season 3, Episode 8, The Sanctuary, which I should say we shouldn't confuse with the Deep Space Nine episode that's simply called Sanctuary.
I watched the wrong episode.
I was wondering. Yeah. I know, but I was expecting maybe we get some Skreans in this episode, but unfortunately not. I actually love that DS9 episode. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Sanctuary. We're here to talk about The Sanctuary. So we like to start off with initial thoughts and first impressions. So Peter, as our guest, just let us know, maybe first briefly, like what you've thought of kind of Discovery as a whole, and then kind of general thoughts on this episode.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed Discovery so far. It's definitely a bit different than what I was used to with the previous series. I particularly enjoy, though, the serialization and how each season is kind of its contained story, and each season ender is sort of, it ends things nicely and gives you a little teaser instead of sort of the best of both worlds ridiculous cliffhanger that makes you anxious for the entire summer or a whole year, as is the case. So I like the characters a lot. I think they all have a very interesting quirks. Again, very different from previous shows where kind of people were kind of mostly well-adjusted and hang out and doing things professionally. They definitely have more issues, it seems, but that makes for drama. So yeah, and I think so far, each season, sort of the grand story arc has been very intriguing to me, and this season is, I think, the best one so far. For the Sanctuary, I thought it was a solid episode. It didn't blow me away or anything, but it nicely moved all the story arcs forward, introduced some very intriguing story points, especially on the burn, and it just makes me so much more excited to see what's coming up.
Okay, excellent. So, Chrissy, what did you think about the episode?
I liked it overall, not as much as last week or a few of the previous weeks. This is probably because this was so exposition heavy. You know, there's a lot of, here's information about stuff that we're going to be dealing with later, but we're not dealing with it right now. So
I know there was a lot of stuff where it's like, in a few hours we'll be able to tell you something, or like, next time we meet I'll tell you that story. Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
So it's needed information. Not a bad episode, not the best episode, but yeah, pretty good.
Okay, so Brandon, tell us what your initial thoughts are on the episode.
So the first time I watched it, I was pretty underwhelmed with it. And with every successive rewatch, I enjoyed it less and less. And this episode makes me wish this was a 12-episode season. I think this episode was a total waste of 45 minutes of this show. And the only important scene that we had could have been tacked onto the next episode. I think everything else that we learned here could have been a line of dialogue in the next episode. And I was very disappointed.
What's the important
Well,
scene?
that's
I gotta ask.
a little brutal.
Yeah. I think the only important scene was the scene where we get the information on the distress signal. And everything else in this episode, it was completely unnecessary. And it was very, very frustrating, this episode, to me. So...
All right.
Which is, and I messaged you guys earlier. I said, I am so dreading talking about this episode today. I messaged you guys yesterday because I've been really loving this season so far. Even the previous episode, which is when they rescued Book, I didn't love the episode, but I didn't dislike the episode. I was just like, whatever, it was okay. This is the first episode this season that I've, significantly disliked, and it's very frustrating. And I don't like feeling that way because I've been enjoying the season so darn much.
I know. I can see that because, Brandon, I was in your position for most of Lower Decks where I was like, I'm dreading talking about this. So, okay, I mean, we'll try not to make the ensuing time we talk about this episode too torturous for you. But, so my first impression. So, I think I will agree. This is not the best episode of the season or a favorite episode, but in contrast to you, Brandon, I actually liked it more each time that I watched it. So I've watched it 3 times. I usually watch it twice, but I wanted to kind of soak in what was happening for the second and third time. And for me, I thought there's some really great stuff with Giorgio and Culber. I really love the stuff with Adira. I love the indications that we got, like what you're talking about, Brandon, with the distress signal and all of that was going on. I thought there was some really great stuff with Detmer and Book. I did think there were some weaknesses. I think I said this in our messenger chat, Osira is not a good villain for me. I think that she just didn't come across that strongly, or is that dangerous?
What a letdown.
But it's interesting, rewatching it, otherwise, besides that and maybe a little bit of the stuff on the planet, I actually really enjoyed it quite a bit. So, it may be maybe a least favorite of the season, possibly, but there's still a lot that I really liked about it. So, interesting to get that kind of diversity of opinions. And also it was interesting online, because I saw your reaction, Brandon, and I was like, I wonder what other people think about it. And I saw tons of people that... Not tons. Okay, this is a biased sample from my followers, but I did see a number of people where it was their favorite. They thought it was the best Discovery episode. So it's so interesting, the range that you get. But
there is one, there is a couple things that I did want to say right off the bat. I don't know if we'll get to it, but there was one line that was laugh out loud hilarious, and I loved it, and almost loved it as much as Da Vinci from the animated series. And we're probably, because it's just a throwaway line, is when Rin is talking with Tilly at the end, and he says, I mean, you want to scare an Andorian child, tell them they're going to Federation summer camp. That is the greatest line. I loved it. I laughed every time.
We don't have that.
It was wonderful.
That was pretty great. Actually, I laughed at a couple other things as well, but okay, that's good. We can start on something that you really laughed.
There are a couple things. We'll go through it. There are a couple things that I did like, but on the whole,
all right.
Oh, my cat's doing me what Grudge did.
Great timing. I really love that part too.
Yes.
I thought the cat was hilarious. What the hell is that thing? Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about some specific topics here. And I want to start out by talking about Giorgio and Culber, because that's kind of how we open the episode. So we know from some previous episodes, Giorgio's getting some traumatic experiences that are debilitating her at different times. She's kind of very, very grudgingly and hesitantly getting examined by Culber. There's some interesting dialogue with them back and forth where Culber is trying to help, and Giorgio is doing her snappy comeback thing and I really don't want help, but I guess I'm going to have to get help anyway. So there's kind of different scenes that are threaded through the episode where we see we see Giorgio's flashback again, and she's, bantering back and forth, and we find out, I think, toward the end that it seems like she's dying. Now, what I'm going to say is there's a clip for next week in the Ready Room program that has, I think, a major spoiler in it that I think we should not talk about here in case people don't want to know about that. So let's just talk about what happens within this episode. So I think limited to within this episode, it's finding out that she's dying or there's something going on. But I thought the interaction between Giorgio and Culber was pretty interesting. But Peter, what did you think of kind of that thread in the episode?
I really enjoyed it. I think it's always a treat to see Culber being professional doctor, no nonsense doctor, just laying out the facts, saying if you don't cooperate, you're gonna have a terrible time. And he was very much in control of the situation.
Yeah, and he was being really firm and standing up to her, right?
Yes. I love that. I love that a lot. And he was doing his scans, doing everything super professionally. And it's always nice to see that. Giorgio's comebacks, I think in any other context, you can see it. Oh, she's playing that character again, sort of mirror universe, typical evil things. But thanks to the previous episode where we were told that essentially showing any sort of weakness in the mirror universe, essentially a death sentence, it was very endearing as a result of that, because you know that she is terrified underneath all of these things that she's saying. You can't take any of these evil and sometimes grotesque remarks on face value, because she is really trying to put a mask on, put a front on. And if you view it in that light, I thought it was a pretty great piece of character work.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very perceptive of Culber to say, you're saying all these things, but you're actually really terrified, and that's really tough for her to admit. Yeah. Chrissie, what did you think about the kind of Giorgio Culber stuff in this episode?
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind is that of anybody on the ship, they are the two most at odds. He is inherently a healer, and she is inherently a killer. And so the conflict there, it's asking for conflict about anything, really, because they're coming at anything that they handle from completely opposite directions. But, yeah, I mean, we learn, and I think we all kind of expected that in the mirror universe, weakness is not something that was tolerated, let's say. But it's doubly for her because of her position. And so, it's one thing if the Emperor goes out and is fighting a battle and breaks a bone or is otherwise injured in the battle, because it's an injury that's gained in an honorable way. It's gained in the process of furthering what they're doing for their empire. And if they survive it, then that's just showing so much more power from their end. Okay? Having something going on that you have absolutely no idea what's happening, and it appears to be psychological and physical, that's a death sentence. That's practically a death sentence in Earth history. So yeah. Actually, well, that just made me think of something. I make a note.
Are we going to have a Chrissie's
We're going to have
a
very short one that I just thought about. Okay.
Oh, awesome! All right. Well, we'll come back to that, but that's cool.
So I think she's scared, as was said, but she doesn't understand the idea of it's okay to be ill, and that it's okay to let people take care of you. So I think that's going to be an interesting progression with her.
Yeah. So Brandon, what did you think about these scenes?
So by the end of this episode, I'm just left wanting, and not necessarily in a good way. We didn't really learn anything about what's going on with Giorgio in this episode. It was just a bunch of scenes telling us that things are bad with her. I from what I've seen, I don't think we can eliminate my theory yet that she could possibly be a replaced hologram. Because she's got something weird going on. So I mean, maybe not, probably not, but I don't think we can eliminate it out all completely. But as far as her acerbic attitude and whatnot, it was just a bit too much. I totally agree with Peter in what he just said, in that she's using it as a cover to try and portray this false facade of being this strong, angry Terran person. But to me, it was just a bit too much and a little bit too on the head for the episode, So there was just too many evil one-liners from Giorgio this week. And I've been really loving Giorgio this season. Some of her stuff has been the best stuff in the season so far. This was just a little bit too much for me.
That's interesting you say that, because I think you maybe could say that she is scared and getting into a position where she's kind of almost consciously dialing that up in order to not really deal with what's going on. But I could see that. I've had an interesting relationship to this Giorgio character, because I think going back to the beginning of Discovery, I love, the prime Giorgio captain. And then we got this mirror Giorgio, and it's what do I think about this? And this is a really kind of terrible person, but I've come to feel kind of more sympathetic to her being in a completely different place and people thinking about her completely differently than everything that she kind of came to know before. So I've been finding the character kind of more and more fascinating as we've gone along for the last couple of seasons. And again, we'll have to get into it next week, but there will be, I think, some significant developments coming up. But you're right, Brandon. I think to a certain extent it was a lot of setup, but I really liked how kind of Culber was handling this and just kind of wondering kind of where it's going.
See, part of it is that they were going back and forth quite a bit in the episode, and then all of a sudden there's like 15 minutes left in the episode. Culber pulls her aside and says, "We need to talk. It's not as cut and dry as you're dying." And then we don't get anything else. Like, she had been significantly in the episode. She was the significant B part of the episode. And then for a third of it, she's just all of a sudden gone.
Yeah, I can totally see what you're saying.
It's sort of the issue with setup episodes in these serialized seasons. So sometimes you just have all these setups and you don't get a payoff, and unfortunately you have to wait and hope that the payoff is good.
But to me, the setup was the last two times that we've encountered her. We didn't need a third episode of setup. Yeah. Right? We had her in the hallway at the end of the one episode. We had her collapsing when they were rescuing Book. That's the setup.
Yeah. I actually agree with you. I mean, actually thinking about what you've said, it does feel like this episode sort of just continues that one note, and didn't really move it too much. So yeah, actually I do agree with that. Yeah.
Well, I don't think we knew that there seemed like there was something wrong, but I think having some kind of confirmation that she's actually dying, I think, was new information, at least of a confirmation of that. We could see that there was something serious going on. And there was also this thing where it seemed like she was kind of like her phasing a little bit, or there was something going on, which I felt was a little bit of like what is going on with that. But yeah, we need to wait a little bit to find out more. So
her willingness to go see Culber, or letting Michael force her to see Culber is a development. Beyond that, yeah, I'd tend to agree. Other than the phasing thing, which may go to your theory, Brandon. You know, if the scan was interfering with the holographic matrix.
We'll see. I don't know if that'll happen. But I just wanted to make sure, since it was at the top of the episode and it was threaded through, that we talked about it first. But anything else before we go on?
Well, you say she's dying, Justin, but it's not that cut and dry.
Yes.
I know. And it's not. I know how it's not, but you need to wait until next week for me to tell you.
This is why I don't watch the Ready Room stuff until after.
Yeah.
I watched that scene early because Cronenberg's in it, and I'm like, I can't wait. So
I know, like,
it's your guy.
More Cronenberg stuff. Yeah, I'm looking
forward to it.
I
also caught it, and it just kind of spawned so many theories that we can't talk about.
Yeah, it's like I wish we could talk about it, but I really don't want to spoil it for anyone that doesn't like to watch those things. Okay, so let's actually go to, I think, what's the A plot of this episode, which has to do with Book's homeworld of Kwejian. So let me just kind of talk about a little bit of an overview of what happened. So Book gets this message from his brother, Kahim, not a biological brother, but there's some association there, that Osira is going to, I don't know, make some trouble for Kwejian, which is their homeworld. And so actually one of the things I thought was interesting and a contrast was this time Burnham actually takes it up to the Admiral instead of just kind of going off on her own. Eventually the Admiral kind of reluctantly gets convinced and they jump over to Kwejian. They see Osira. There's this thing that's happening with the planet where they've been starving because of these sea locusts, and they have to kind of, work things out. I think they end up getting around the situation a little bit because they're supposed to be their observers with Detmer piloting Book's ship, which I think we'll talk about a little bit. And so they disable her ship, and they find a way through Book and his brother and the Discovery's ability to amplify things to kind of help out the planet. And then after that, I think Book seems to be more sympathetic to going along with the Federation. That's kind of brief overview of all the stuff that happens in that plot. But Peter, like, what did you think about kind of this area of the story?
Yeah, So I really enjoyed Book as a character. I mean, I fell in love with him with the season premiere. I just think he's a really interesting character, and just the way he handles himself, the way he expresses himself, I think it's just been great. And of course, David Ayala, I think is the.
I think he pronounces it Jawa. I think.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
That's the Canadian. That's the Canadian me. I think.
Oh, I thought it was Ayala until I heard somebody on the Ready Room pronounce it.
Well, it's good to know. Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just think he's doing a wonderful job. And so diving into his character and his history a bit more is always fun. But I think Book's plot sort of points out the overall weakness in sort of these story of the week things that Discovery's been doing. They are trying to have it both ways, where they have a serialized storyline, but also have a self-contained story every week. And sometimes it's been successful, sometimes it hasn't been, just because sometimes there's more time that's been used for serialized storyline, and sometimes less for the plot of the week. And so the plot itself, I thought, was fairly simple, and it didn't really blow me away or anything. Kind of sort of like a typical bad guy threatening a sort of a not a pre-warp, but a lower civilization planet, and our heroes come in and save the day. So it's very typical by the numbers plot, and so I wasn't particularly. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was, but I wasn't blown away or anything. And actually, I want to talk about Oser a bit too, because I thought she was fine. Me personally, I've never been a big fan of sort of the mob boss villain. I just didn't think they were particularly powerful in any way, shape, or form. It's like, okay, you control some ragtag band of people, great. Okay, you don't seem particularly threatening. And so, with my lower standards, I actually did enjoy Oser a bit. I thought she was very much, this is what I want. Give it to me now. End of story. I like that no nonsense, and there were only two or three lines where she kind of went overboard with the twirling mustache villain lines. But
where the villain has to tell you why they're doing what they're doing before they fire on you.
Exactly,
kind of thing, right?
You sealed your own fate.
Did you get blown to bits and forget to tell me?
Yes, exactly, like that.
That was strange.
Luckily, there weren't too many of those. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Chrissy, what did you think about the kind of Kwejian, Oser, all that plot?
The idea of these. Oh shoot! I just lost the term. What were they called? The bugs, the sea creatures that were coming out.
Oh, the sea locusts.
Sea locusts. Thank you. The idea of the sea locusts, I thought, was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
That
they looked really cool.
And that too, yeah. You have this situation where what is essentially a natural phenomenon is completely destroying this, and it's because of her involvement, if I understood that correctly.
I think it is. I think, but sorry, just maybe to talk about it a little bit, because I think what I understand was happening the way that Vance and Book had explained it was they were having this issue with these sea locusts, eating up their harvest, and then Oser came by and was like, "Hey, we can give you this thing to help you out, and exchange for something. I don't know if we know what it is for." And maybe after a while, there were some demands that were coming back, and they didn't want to meet them, so they stopped giving them this repellent, and it kind of came back. That's, I think, what was happening.
Yeah, I feel like there has to be some kind of other factor in there, because otherwise, how could they have been living here before they had the repellent?
Oh, they mentioned that briefly. It was the burn. The burn changed their moon's orbit a little bit or something, and that changed the title.
Wow, I totally missed that.
It was a very brief line right at the beginning in their talk with the Vance. So
yeah, I actually I have it here because luckily somehow recently I've been getting transcripts online, but there's a site that started posting them. So Book actually says, when the burn hit, damage to subspace shifted our moon's orbit, causing tidal changes. Okay. Sea locusts came out of the ocean and ate our harvest. Millions were starving. Then the chain came along. So it's a subspace issue that leads to changes in the moon's orbit.
Can I just comment really briefly? I thought that was such a strange coupling of the two sentences. I thought, okay, so subspace changes, damage your moon, very fine. And then suddenly, sea locusts came out of the sea and destroyed our harvest. It seemed just the two sentences were so different from each other. It was kind of hilarious, actually. Yeah.
Butterfly effect.
Exactly.
Locust effect.
I mean, the title, but it was probably like the title changes led to some other change, which led to some other change, which led to the sea locust, but they didn't have time to explain that, I guess. But so anyway, I guess there was a little explanation. But keep going, Chrissy, I think, on your point.
Right. So I thought that was a very interesting way to get them there and way to get everybody together. When we were first introduced to his brother, Kahim, if I'm pronouncing that right, I think
it's Kahim, yeah.
Kahim, okay. My first thought, I'm sitting there, and I turn and I look at Jay, and I say, "Oh, that's a knockoff Pedro Pascal," because he looked like Oberyn Martell, the same style of beard and kind of almost the same hairstyle. Just
it was very
has nothing to do with Star Trek, but it just was the first thing I thought when I saw it.
It was like this very intense style of speech where every word is like. Yeah, like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was
a very accurate description of him, Chrissy, as him from Game of Thrones. That is actually extremely apt.
Thank you. I want to know about this telepathic ability. Is this particular to? Well, it can't be particular to a family because they're not actually biologically related, right? So, is it particular to certain families, certain people, or is this is this a species trait? So I hope we get into that. Because it seems like it's got to be something kind of special.
I do too. It seemed like, I think one of the things they haven't really answered is, are these people actually human, or they kind of look human and there's some other species that has special powers or something like that? But I actually really like that ability, and that they can be empathic, and that they're not forcing the world around them or the creatures around them to do things. They're asking them to do things. I actually really like that. For me, I like it when there's kind of this nonviolent aspect, like I'm asking you to help me, and they kind of speak their language somehow. I actually really like that concept and want to know more about that.
I really liked that too, because it was like, hey, you maybe don't realize you're destroying our crops, and then, and maybe not even so many words. It's just go back to the sea. I
hope they gave them some information about where to get alternative food, because I assume they were doing this because they couldn't find food in the ocean, right? So we don't know about that.
Could have been timing too.
It clearly wasn't hurting them because they were using some type of repellent to just send them back to the oceans, and there's so many of them that it's overwhelming the lands now, right? So I mean, it's clearly there's not enough of
they can get their food from the ocean, but the stuff on land is tastier or something.
Yeah.
It's chocolate flavored whatever instead of
I guess we want to have chocolate this
flavored
week.
Whatever. I don't know.
Fall foliage. Yum yum.
Yes, there you go. It's red, so it's crunchy. The other thing, I since we brought up Osira already, I agree that she doesn't feel terribly threatening yet. Okay, except for what she did to her nephew. And what she had apparently done to her nephew's father, whether was her brother, not her brother-in-law. So, I mean, that's callous. The callousness is dangerous. But I think we're perceiving her as not being terribly dangerous because we're thinking of the way we normally see the Federation and Starfleet. And that's not... Her caliber of pirate, shall we say, would not be anything compared to what the Federation could put against her. But she may actually be more powerful than what's left of Starfleet, depending on how much of the territory she has and how many ships and all that.
What you're really saying is the burn has scrambled things so much that even weak villains can prosper.
Yes, and actually, I had a note about this. It's very telling about what role the Federation played and what role Starfleet played, and how seemingly as soon as that's gone, or within a few decades of that being not as available, you have all of these crime syndicates popping up, because I have to assume that they're not the only one, and we know that they're an arm of a larger one. So it feels very much in the way that the way that the United States was trying to present itself during the Cold War in a lot of ways. And that's interesting in the context of what Star Trek originally was, and this idea of getting past all of those Cold War fears. So I'm very interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, now that you're talking about it, it sounds a bit more interesting
Hey, all right.
I had originally thought.
She could be one of those non-state actors. That's the people that are just randomly going around blowing things up, but they don't actually belong to any country, or the countries won't acknowledge them.
He also said that something to the effect of blood on the hands of the Federation, and sort of the Federation not kind of caring about their own mistakes and stuff like that. And I feel we've been given very little of that. Clearly, they were desperate, right? We've been kind of given hints that they were getting desperate at the right before the burn, and I definitely hope that they give us more information about what the Federation turned into before it just collapsed.
Yeah. There's also an interesting line in here where Saru actually says, if memory serves, the Orions were once enslaved themselves. I mean, talking about what we've seen with Orions before, and they have this kind of slavery culture. And I mean, there's all this stuff that you see, I guess, before Enterprise, where it seems like the male members are enslaving the female members, but maybe it's actually the reverse in terms of power, whatever. But it seems like that they've gone away from that, something based on enslavement, and now there's something different going on. So I'm kind of interested in that. But
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I know we've talked a bit about what's going on and with Osira. I mean, Brenda, is there anything you want to add so far to what we've been talking about, or your thoughts?
Oh boy, I got a lot to add to this. So
keep it to 10 items or less.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This whole plot, man, I could not care less about Book's brother. I could not care less about these locusts, right? I mean, this is so Peter said it just a little while ago here, is that they're doing a fine dance by trying to do episodic and serialized. And so far this season, they've done a very good job of it. Okay. If we look back, every episode of the season so far is basically episodic, but they are also advancing the plot. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, this episode does not advance the plot in any way. Learning about these locusts has absolutely nothing to do with our end game of trying to figure out the burn.
I think what this episode has to do with is making Book more amenable to working with the Federation, which may work into kind of how things go, but I can see what you mean as far as it's closed up and
yeah. So I mean, we're looking at this villain of Osira, and so Osira's plan is to get Book's brother to send a distress call to Book in order to get Book there, hopefully bringing Rin as well, right? Because she really is looking for Rin. Right? And we want Rin because Rin, who's been rescued by the Federation and seen the Federation in action, saving Book, risking a lot to save Book, and saving Rin in the process and saving his life, doesn't trust the Federation enough to tell them that the Emerald Chain is running out of dilithium like everybody else. And at the end of it, it doesn't matter that he knows this information. Right? Who cares that they're running out of dilithium? It doesn't matter that they're running out of dilithium. Everybody's running out of dilithium.
The sense that I get is that there's a very limited amount of dilithium, but the Emerald Chain has been able to get some kind of corner on the market, or they have most of what's out there and they're doling it out, or people are doing favors. But if even they, who have kind of cornered things and are the supplier for a lot of people of dilithium based on favors they can do or what people are paying, are running out, then that's a bigger problem. If it's then it seems like the supply really is getting toward nothing for anyone, as opposed to one actor having lots of it that they're just doling out, right? So I think it's actually significant in that way.
They could also be sort of showing them to be like a paper tiger, so to speak. Emerald Chain seems to be the big bad and the big power these days, but the secret is they will collapse pretty soon, I guess is what Rin's saying.
But after what Rin's been through here with the Federation and them saving him, I just don't buy that he's I still don't trust you enough to tell you this piece of information about this person who has tortured me and put me into a position where everybody in the last slave camp I was in hated my guts. And I even wouldn't tell them this information that I had, which probably would have put me in a better standing with these other people if I knew this information about them. I don't know. It was ridiculously complex.
Yeah, but imagine from Rin's perspective, if you have the Emerald Chain here who is trying to control your life and doing terrible things, and on the other hand, you have the Federation that you've heard terrible stories about. You're not sure if they're going to play games or do things that are terrible for you as well. You're going to be very wary. I mean, I think one of the things we haven't found out is how long it's been since the Andorians were part of the Federation, but it seems like it may have been quite a while, and there may have been a lot of distrust built up over centuries to overcome. So I think it makes sense that he's wary and cautious and needs to see something in action that he can really actually trust them more than these other people, and he's heard these stories. Anyway. Chrissie?
We know the Federation to be relatively good, shall we say, relatively. But we can't put that perspective on him.
Right.
You know, right.
But,
so it's the devil you know.
Right, but he trusts Book. Book was kind to him in the slave camp.
Yes.
He trusts Book.
Yeah.
Book saved him. Book trusts these people, and he's just like, I don't trust you to tell this information.
Book
Well, he
that
could
could
have been
change the
screwed
quadrant.
over.
I don't think Book.
Over God knows when.
I don't think Book, but I think it's going individually, right? Because I think that Rin trusts Book, and then Book trusts Burnham, and then it's taking some time for Book to trust the other people in the Federation, I think, which happens within this episode. So it's this. I don't think it's happening all at once. That it's like, yeah, but I trust Book. Book trusts the Federation, because I don't think he really does until toward the end of this episode when he sees them help his planet. So I think it kind of makes sense. Yeah. But on the other hand, you're right. Osiris' plan is very convoluted, right? Like I would figure there should be another way. Maybe a Star Trek trope like a fake distress signal to lure the Discovery and ambush them and pick up Rin or something, right?
We have a Discovery, or we have a signal.
A distress signal. Well, we'll probably we should probably talk about that in a minute, but
yeah. There's a few more things that I want to talk about this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
The other frustrating thing that I had with this was the editing that they decided to choose. I mentioned this once before, and I believe it was in Star Trek Picard. The editing between the Saru and the Osira discussion, and then editing to Book and his brother, was completely pretentious and unnecessary.
I don't know if I call it pretentious, but it is a bit jarring the way that they were doing it.
They did it once before in Picard, and I would love to see if it was an episode directed by Frakes.
So, okay, let's go back to Picard. So for Picard, was that the episode where it was Picard and Laris and they were in the building and all that stuff? Was it that one?
Going back and forth between them.
Yeah, I think it was episode 3.
I'm going to look back and see who directed that one.
Yeah,
I'm
pretty sure it was that one, because they were going back and forth between Picard talking about it and them investigating what's her name's room.
Yeah, and we talked about that, and I remember that I love that, but you had a big problem with it.
I also love that kind of stuff.
Let's see.
It kind of heightens the tension.
Was that the yeah? Was that the end?
I think it was the third
episode. Yeah, that was directed by Hanali Culpepper.
Okay, so
that's right. She did the first 3, so
yeah,
that's right. So, anyways, I didn't like it. I thought it was ridiculous. I don't know. It just, but at least I'm consistent. I called it out before, so
sure. Yeah, that kind of editing doesn't work for you.
No.
Okay. Other items on your list of fun?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's probably my last major complaint. Oh, look, it's so cute how the real-life married couple are bickering and disrespectful to each other on TV. Isn't that cute?
I love the two.
I didn't like it in DS9 when Nana Visitor's like, you put this in me, you did this to you. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. That was just so annoying.
That was golden.
That was different, because that was an inside joke for anybody who actually knew that they were married and she was actually pregnant with his child. This was not.
Right.
This did not go that far.
Okay. All right.
That was so annoying.
I love the two of them together.
I told you, man. Every time I watch this 4 times, and every episode, it just got more and more annoying to me, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. So,
but in isolation from that, what do you think of like the Rin character, like, and all the stuff we've seen of him?
I'm tired of this. I don't trust the Federation. The Federation is evil thing, and so like that aspect of it didn't work for me. I mean, I don't know. Like so far, he's not doing much for me in the show. I was surprised to see him again. I thought he was one and done and gone. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll see him again. We probably will. We'll probably see Book's brother again. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that Book's brother will come to the rescue at the very finale of the season, and I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that Oser is going to get eaten by a transworm. Okay, like these are things that I'm certain are going to happen, right? So
yes. That
could
would be
happen.
appropriate.
Could happen. Okay. I think it's interesting because I've really been enjoying the Rin character, and the actor who plays him, I think his name is pronounced Noah Everbach Katz, was on Trek Profiles, which is a fun podcast where people interview Star Trek fans. So he's a big Star Trek fan, and he was talking about how he went about the role, and a lot of what he did was actually looking at the Andorians from Enterprise, specifically Jeffrey Combs' performance, and then thinking about Rin and how he is in Scavengers, where he's been kind of beaten down and all this stuff, and he's not maybe what you'd typically see for an Andorian, but then putting more into the performance in this episode for being like a little bit forceful and haughty and all of that. I really like it. I like Rin as a character quite a bit. But it's interesting you have that perspective. But I'm curious, like, Peter, what do you think of the Rin character?
I'm actually going to side with Brandon on this one. I think for most of his portrayal, nothing really stuck out to me. But it was his turn on Book's ship that I thought that was the initial spark that I really liked, which is when Grudge jumped on him. And that sort of, tough guy facade again, fell out. I was like, oh, what the heck is this? And so I really enjoyed that. And then later on, his quip about, oh, I'm just as important as the cat. I like those little, for me personally, I like those parts of characters. I think characters who are just straight by the book or tough or something, one note, is not very interesting. But that he can show both is the beginning of something interesting. And so there's hope there. What I wish is that he will be the conduit to showing us what the Federation turned into. Right off the top of my head right now, I can't think of anyone else who will be in that position. Book being a carrier, probably just running around doing his thing, but Rin has been told stories. Rin belongs to a race that wasn't the core members of the Federation, one of the founders, and so hopefully he can tell us something about, well, by the end days of the Federation, this happened, and this is what we were told, and as Andorian children, and tell us what's going on.
That's a good point. Yeah, and let's go to Andoria. I would like to see that.
That'd be pretty cool, I think, if Rin was the conduit and we learned something happened, and maybe that's why he's holding a grudge. So, sure, that'd be fine. I'd love to see grudge.
Holding a grudge and then holding a grudge in his lap. Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord.
You didn't even think about it. So Chrissie,
I thought you did that on purpose.
I thought so too. Chrissie, any thoughts on Rin?
He's an interesting character. I look forward to learning more about him. I think it is very cute when he's with Tilly. I thought this actually gives me an opportunity to say I loved how Tilly is taking on her new position, and the way she just corrects him, because I forget, he walks in and he's like, "Hey, we were going to have a conversation," and she's like, "No, that's not how we talk to the captain."
I like that too. I mean, it was only a little bit of a thread, but I kind of liked how seeing Tilly as first officer and was through in the corridor. But before we might talk about that, since we talked about Rin, one of the big things that happens is Rin is kind of on this mission on Book's ship with Detmer, because Tilly concocts this thing that it'll be okay if it's done from a non-Federation ship to attack Osira's ship, and the pilot will be severely disciplined. And Detmer goes along with it. And Detmer's been having kind of all of this trouble this season with PTSD and all of that. And I think this was one thing where, I think it was interesting. But Peter, what did you think of like Detmer's role in those scenes, or what's happening with her?
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't work for me very well. I think the issue is that all these other bridge officers from the first and second seasons, they were essentially background characters for a really long time. I think only maybe near the end of season 2 that they got more screen time, but even those more screen time didn't really, I think, tell us too much about their character backgrounds or anything like that. Just a little tidbits, not enough to build like an actual character arc or motivation and stuff like that. And so certainly seeing the portrayal of PTSD was interesting. I'm glad they tackled that issue. It's not handled very often in Trek, even though there's a lot of trauma. But I think the characters like Detmer and Owo and all these folks, even though they're fun, they're just not. There's just not enough information for these these story beats to land for me personally. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
I would totally agree with that, Peter. Yeah. Absolutely. It's nice to see them growing, and it's nice to get some stuff in this. I hope this isn't the end of Detmer's PTSD arc.
I don't think it is.
Because if this is, yeah, I hope it's not. If this is, that's not a very satisfactory conclusion. Yeah. Right? That she's let's fly dangerously and I'm all better. Yeah. So I hope there's more.
I think what they're actually doing with this episode, because it could very well be and might have been an episodic Trek in the past, like you had a victory, everything's going to be fine. But I think what they're trying to say is that with any kind of trauma, there are ups and downs. There are good days and bad days, right? So I think she's had some tough times. She's been okay sometimes. This is like a win for her and what she's doing. But I'm hoping that where they're going with it is that it'll kind of go back and forth, because you can't cure something like that just by, having some adrenaline fueled mission or something like that. So,
especially not by that.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one who's got like some little problems with the episode. Justin, we need Peter on this more often.
We'll see what we can do.
I'm in agreement that I don't wish Detmer ill, but I really hope she's not fixed now. Because that isn't how things work. And I mean, this can't be whatever the episode is after the second part of Chain of Command and Picard's fine, or the episode after Family and Picard's fine. So
yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I have to say it. I really like the scenes with Detmer, and it's interesting, Peter and Brandon, what you're saying, that we don't know enough for it to land, because I feel like, yes, we could get more information, but Detmer's been there since the very first episode of Discovery, and I feel like you've seen her go through certain things. Yeah, maybe sometimes it's just a word or two here or there, a glance or two here and there, but I actually really feel pretty invested in the character at this point, and I'm liking the arc this season, and I was definitely kind of along with it. And I'm often not the person that's like a fan of like a lot of action, but I have to admit I really liked the action in that scene with what she was doing, and the effects were pretty amazing, and with the manual control thing. But so it actually really worked for me. I liked it a lot, but I do definitely want to see more. One of the things for Detmer that I want to point out that I really liked is that at a certain point, Detmer's having some issues. She's working with her new holographic display. And there is a point with, where Owosekun comes over to her and she's like, kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Do you really need that? And Detmer says, I need some fail safes. And Owosekun says, you're the only failsafe that you need. It's little things this season, but I love that Owosekun is so supportive and so much like behind her. And I want to see more of those two characters interacting and like what they do. So, but yeah, there could be more, but it worked for me. Go ahead.
That actually goes to the point when they were sitting around and she was explaining at the end how she took it into manual piloting, and I think we may have another clue, Brandon, as to your idea that she and Owosekun are a couple, because she said something to the effect of, God help me that I'm going to have to deal with her for the next few weeks or something like that.
I don't know if it necessarily means that. I mean, it's possible, I know, but they could just be really good friends.
They do work directly next to each other on the bridge.
Yeah.
And when you work directly next to each other for a while, you get to know each other pretty well, I think, and you deal with them.
It was a cute line, no matter what the context is.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so I think we've talked about a lot of stuff on Kwejian overall, and I had a couple of other things that I wanted to...
I want to interrupt just and add one more question that they talked about with this Kwejian plot line. That I think is kind of interesting. So they said that Kwejian is 2 weeks away at full warp, and we have less than a 50% chance of surviving at Transwarp Tunnel. What does that mean?
So here's what I think. So Book made a reference early on, it may have even been in the first episode, that it seems like his ship has a slipstream drive, like what was referenced in Voyager and the novels. which requires Benamite. But I think he was saying that at the time he didn't have what was needed for that. But I don't know. They haven't explained it yet, but the only thing I could take from it is that it's possible for him to use a slipstream tunnel, but there's been enough subspace damage because of the burn that there's only a 50% chance that you'll actually survive it. That's what I took from it, but I'm reading a lot into it.
Then why would anybody use that form of transportation?
Well, maybe it's
Gotta be
particularly
really
bad in
important
that
to go.
area.
Maybe.
Yeah. Or maybe it's like, oh, this is a spot where, if these transwarp conduits are leftovers of the Borg, maybe it's, oh, well, they destroyed them over here, but we can use them over there.
Yeah, it's interesting that they've even referenced it at all, because slipstream can be, it's not as fast as the spore drive, but it can be much faster than going at warp and could solve some problems, right? So, yeah.
But they didn't. They said transwarp tunnel. Transwarp drive is different than slipstream technology.
Yeah.
I think it's often been referred to as that way, but if you think of transwarp as faster than usual warp, it can fit into that also. But yeah, maybe not.
Because the transwarp drive was on the Excelsior in Star Trek 3, right? And I believe
that's a whole other thing.
Transwarp drive, right? But I believe also the transwarp drive technology is what they were testing out in Timeless.
I think you might be right about that.
Yes,
it's been a while.
Yes,
yeah.
But
I don't know. They've dropped it in, so it seems like they'll come back to it, right?
Now, this is interesting. We've all got different interpretations, because I heard that, and I was like, oh, Borg transwarp conduits, and I didn't even think of the other.
The Borg did use transwarp drive. That's right.
Yeah.
The transwarp tunnels.
They did, yeah.
And since they called it a conduit, or whatever they called it, it wasn't just, oh, we're going to turn on the transwarp drive and go somewhere. I don't know.
Okay.
I love it when we all come up with different ways of looking at something.
That's great, yeah. Okay, so anything else on Quajon? Because there's a couple other things I wanted to get into. Good on that? Okay.
The only other thing, it's not really Quajon, but the transworm eating the nephew, they did the blood thing on the camera again.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I don't often do this. But that whole scene where it was like she was getting the nephew to be eaten by the transworm, I know you do this sometimes, but I don't often do it. I was actually rolling my eyes, so I didn't even see it, because I was like, why have this scene that just tells you that she's evil? We know that she's going to be evil. You don't need to see him being eaten. But I didn't notice the blood on the camera.
I noticed his dismemberment.
And you see his leg fly off at an angle, and I was just like,
I missed that too. All right.
Yeah, that was I will say that was a totally unnecessary. You don't need that scene, I think. But anyway. So let's talk about one of the things that you said was significant, Brandon, which is this distress signal. So what happens is that Saru and Tilly go into engineering, and Stamets and Adira and maybe a few others are there, and they're talking about what they've found. So they've combined the SB-19 data that the Navari, I should say, gave them last week, along with the couple of data points that Burnham had, and they've been able to isolated to this nebula, the Verubin Nebula, and within that, Saru helps with some stuff. Anyway, there's some things to kind of boil it down to. It's like the music that they've been hearing, which I think they had found out a little before they entered the room, that the Barzans heard, and that Gray was playing on the cello and got from a previous host. And that also, if they take it to a further level of analysis, it seems like a Federation distress signal. So I want to see what our ideas are about what this means. Peter?
Well, so first thing I want to say is it was really nice seeing some sort of real-life technobabble dropped in there.
Yeah, tell us all about that, because we may not know what's real life in that.
Yeah. So there were two things in there that stuck out to me. Verubin, I don't know if this is a reference, but it might be a reference to Vera Rubin.
I thought about that.
Right? Who is one of the great astronomers in the 20th century. She collected data that showed motivated the hypothesis of dark matter, which is super awesome. It's essentially opened up a whole new field.
And we've had dark matter references in Discovery, right?
That's right.
Cool.
That's right. And then, of course, they mentioned a neutron star broadcasting radio waves at 5 kilohertz, something thereabouts. So that's always fun. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what this means. I actually watched that scene many times trying to figure out what exactly was what. And by that I mean there's the distress call, and then there's some kind of disturbance or like distortion, and then there's the music.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure, was the music a distorted version of the distress call? And if so, why does it become music? And music that is somehow broadcast across the entire galaxy, or so it seems. Or not even broadcast, but it seems to be broadcast through subspace on a subconscious level or something, so that everyone can
see. I've got the answer to all of this, right?
Oh,
okay, and it's clear that you guys have not been watching any modern Star Trek properly. If you don't realize that this is the Titan, Admiral Riker's there, and he's converted into some kind of jazz song, you are not watching any new Star Trek properly, okay?
Oh, that's great.
Clearly.
That's not even modern Star Trek. You could connect that to Menage a Trois.
There you go. There you go.
It's a time distortion, and the Titan's in the middle of it.
There we go. I love it. It's clearly going to be Riker, and then Riker continues his trend of showing up in all Star Trek. So.
In all seriousness, though, Peter, I agree with you there. I don't have the ear for it. I'm not good with that type of thing, but I don't know how close the signal sounded to the music.
Not very.
I could kind of see where it might, but I don't have a musical ear.
Okay, so here's the thing about it, and I'm only talking about this not from my own perspective of making any music, but from perspective of my wife who makes music. So you can definitely, I think, take, and I hope I'm interpreting this right. I think you can definitely take something and it starts out sounding like something, and you can definitely distort it or do some manipulation or effects to it so that it's hard for it to be recognizable from that original source. Okay. So Peter, I was trying to understand it as well. Like, are they saying it's like music with how people might be hearing it when it goes through whatever neutron star, whatever radiation, and then it's the base of it is actually something different? And I can believe that could be the case, but it brings up a lot of questions like, of course, what Federation ship or thing is this that's emitting a distress call? Why is it doing that? Why would it get distorted into a certain piece of music? Is there some intelligence between that nebula and everybody else seeing it that's kind of purposefully doing that? I don't know.
Ooh, an intelligent nebula. I didn't think about that. But that, I think...
It's featured.
I think that's totally legit. I mean, it could be. Who knows?
I didn't even think about that before this moment, but like maybe there is some intelligence there that for some reason wants to make it into music so people will eventually get the message, but that seems pretty roundabout way. But...
Yeah. But then also, it's odd because this song, okay, we're making the assumption that this message... this distress signal is turning into the music. All the evidence they've given us shows that that's the case, and as we're interpreting it. But this message is 130 some years old only, yet it's permeated all these cultures across the galaxy.
Subspace.
Right? So to the point where it's a lullaby for the Barzans, and some Trill host, how many generations ago we don't even know, knows this music, right? Like, I don't know, man. It's like, it's weird that this is, I mean, of course it's related to the burn. Obviously it is. But it's weird that they're throwing in this wrench of a Federation distress signal. I don't know.
But is it traveling just as a radio wave, or is it like subspace and it's carrying that kind of information? Right. And by subspace, it could get out a lot faster.
But if it's in subspace, then, I mean, like, that's fine Star Trek techno, whatever, for everybody across the galaxy to permeate their culture, subspace. I guess. I don't know. So,
well, we don't know how far it's distributed, though, because I think in a previous episode, Lieutenant Willow was saying like half of the people there knew it. The Barzans know it. Gray knew it. Not everybody knows it, but it seems like some people do, at least within like a certain area. I don't know.
Well, that's like saying half of everybody knows who the Beatles are, maybe. No, okay, never mind.
I don't know.
You guys are like just looking at me like, no, it's not.
Well, the Beatles were a cultural phenomenon that affected the entire planet because it was the right thing at the right time. They had more than one song, though, right?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
I mean, like, there are some Elvis Presley fans that would say the Beatles are nothing, but, you know, I mean, they had more than one hit, so.
I was trying to make a bad joke and it failed. Right, but in all... Not joking. When you were saying that, how it's permeated all of society and all of the societies in the galaxy, maybe we need to look back to TNG's The Chase. Could be the preservers.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe. It just resonates with the common DNA strands from that ancient message. That would be crazy if that's what happened. Okay, so let's talk about something that I think hit my mind and has hit other people's minds. Federation ship inside a nebula.
Whoa.
Yeah?
What if it's Nightbird?
I thought that's where you were going before when you mentioned Riker, but yeah. He's finally played it. He's finally played it correctly, so he's traveled forward in time to cause the burn and let everyone know about it.
What are we going to do if Frakes actually shows up at the end of this?
No, it's been so difficult. Nobody could actually ever play Nightbird, and the fact that somebody finally played Nightbird opened up a temporal rift.
Wow. So where I was actually going was Federation ship inside a nebula, and people are thinking about Calypso. Do we think it's related to Calypso?
Maybe.
Ooh, I didn't hear that. That's interesting.
I hadn't thought of that either.
Okay, because, and here's something else I was thinking about. I think I messaged you, Chrissy, and Brandon that I had some theory that tied back to season 1, but I later was thinking maybe it couldn't be the case. But okay, here's what I'm thinking. So in Calypso, you see the NCC 1031, right? And we were that has been sitting in a nebula for 1,000 years, right? About 1,000 years. And I think it was the 5th episode where they changed the registry to A, and we were like, so how can things tie back to Calypso? And I was thinking about something. Here's where it's going to get a little convoluted. So my thought was maybe there's a duplicated discovery, and that's what's in the nebula in Calypso. And it took my head back to, and believe me, I see the problems with this, but it took me back to the season 1 episode of Discovery, Into the Forest I Go, where Lorca does the incomplete jump, and you see that there's like these separation of these two ships, right? Of course, then what I remembered as I was reading about it is that's explained later that the ISS Discovery and the Mirror Universe also crossed over at the same time. At least that's what they were theorizing, and the Klingons said that they destroyed it and all of that. So for me to be right, it would have to get pretty convoluted. Like, that's not actually what happened, and there was some duplication of the Discovery that somehow has ended up in this nebula. I don't know.
Holy crap, Justin. That is the greatest episode of Discovery ever, and I absolutely love that theory. That is absolutely wonderful, because we did make that assumption that they were flipping over at the same time, but we could retcon that into something different.
But also the ISS Discovery, we're told, does not have a spore drive, so how are they accessing the mycelial network to come over to the Prime Universe anyway? I don't know.
Oh, I love that, Justin. That's awesome.
You like that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did too.
I completely forgot about Calypso because they haven't done the voice with the computer again, right? Yeah. I mean, just like I completely forgot about Book's empathic ability because they haven't referenced it again. But no, that is wonderful. I love that. I'm so glad I didn't bail on this podcast because I didn't like this episode.
I'm glad. Yeah. And it also made me think of, I don't want to get into spoilers for the book, but it also made me think of the Discovery novel Dead Endless. And I think Chrissy and Brandon, you might know why. but anyway.
Yep.
I wish I could say more about it. But basically, it seems like maybe there is another Discovery and there's been like a parallel crew or something like that.
Or what if, even when you said there, what if when they duplicated, they just didn't duplicate the crew?
It was just the
ship?
But
that's also, that duplication happened prior to them encountering the sphere.
It did.
Right? So then they wouldn't have been infected with the sphere information.
See, that's another problem with it as well. But
and also, I don't know if My Fair Lady or whichever movie that was existed in the Mirror Universe. Seems like that's too nice for the Mirror Universe.
My Evil Lady.
Well, yeah, I don't know. So, but it got me to think, like, is there a connection to Calypso? If not, what is this Federation ship? Ooh. Like, what is the story with it, right? Okay. And I think Discovery has often wanted to make connections back to their own history instead of just introducing, like, a totally new element, like a new Federation ship we've never heard of. So
I have two thoughts. And one of them is related to the spoiler clip for next week, so
okay.
we won't talk about that. But I will say that if you go to that news item on Trek Movie and you read the comments, there is a series of comments that, if true, are extremely mind-blowing. That's all I'll say.
You want me to read the comments?
Yes, I'm sorry. Sometimes there is a gem among the turds, okay? Sometimes there is something.
Maybe you can screen grab him and tweet him for us so that we don't have to slog through the rest.
Yes, I can do that. Spoiler alert, and then the next tweet I'll do that.
Okay.
So the serious thought though is what if the travel forward in time from the 23rd century split off two discoveries, and so
I'm liking that more.
They talked a lot about how, since all the time travel, discovery could have come out any time in the future or in the past or anything, right? So, in any place as well. And so maybe our discovery came out a year later, but then there was a duplicate that came out maybe 2 years after the battle with
130 years ago,
so
yeah. Or actually, yes, you're right, because of the 900 years, yeah.
Yeah, it had to go on for 1,000 years or something. Although, yeah, okay, I have to think a little bit about that. And to explain the dead crew, well, if the ship ended up in that nebula, but in Calypso it wasn't in a nebula, was it?
It was.
It wasn't something though. It wasn't in some.
No, it wasn't a nebula, wasn't it? In Calypso,
it wasn't a nebula.
It was told because Zora says they were told to stay in there until they hear back from the captain. Right.
I need to watch that again. But I guess one way to get rid of the crew is if the Discovery came out in that nebula and all that radiation just killed everyone instantly.
But it's kind of I don't know how it would happen, but to me, the more I think about it, the more it seems likely that somehow this is another discovery that's in that nebula, and that's how it ties over to Calypso.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, problem solved. Oh, I guess we'll see if it's true, though. Could be something else, like the Titan. Okay, well, that's really interesting, but let's talk about Adira. So I think I already mentioned that Adira has a role in this episode helping with, the data and finding out the stress call and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, one of the things that we had talked about in a previous episode is we were told before the show started that that Adira would be a non-binary character, which was pretty groundbreaking, played by a non-binary actor, Blue Del Barrio. But in the first, 7 episodes or whichever episodes where we see Adira is referred to as she or her instead of they or them, as we were told. But in this episode, there is a conversation with Stamets and then a conversation with kind of Stamets and Culber, where Adira basically comes out with this non-binary identity as they or them. So I just wanted to see what everyone thought about that. So Peter, what did you think about those scenes with Adira?
Loved it. Yeah. I'm glad they did this because again, it's a very important topic right now, and I think having a representation in Star Trek, which is all about seeing the better of humanity, is absolutely fantastic. One little thing though is I hoped that by then we'd have gotten past all these social stigma and it would just be regular stuff, but I don't know.
Well, also I think it's
overall I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember as well that Adira kind of grew up on this Earth that's out of the Federation, and maybe things have changed or there's that stigma. But I mean, I think it's very important for representation, but I think it's also very important because the reality today, and maybe at other times in the future, could be that someone's not sure what people will think. But I think an important thing in here is that Adira had this non-binary identity, for as long as they can remember, right? It's not just something that happened because of joining with a Trill symbiont, which I thought was cool. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it does make you think about what this kind of united Earth of the 32nd century is like, and maybe they're not as tolerant as you would think they should be with the history of the Federation. Yeah. So, Chrissie, your thoughts?
I did not read any trouble on Stamets' part with that, except for the fact
No,
that...
Stamets didn't have any trouble, but this is something that Adira hasn't really told anyone besides Gray before this, and if there was more acceptance, Adira would have told others before that,
Well, okay. I was a little confused because Stamets is talking and saying, "Oh, she can do that; it'll be fine," and then she looks very frustrated, or they look very frustrated, and I thought it was because he was volunteering Adira for something that they didn't know they could do.
Oh yeah,
and then there's the explanation, and because she acts as though he already knows this, and he doesn't, as far as we know.
Yeah, as soon as she gave that look, I knew what was coming next in the conversation. As soon as she gave the look. Yeah. I'm going to be doing my best because I mentioned it when we had when the character was first introduced. I'm not familiar with this myself, and this is going to be something for me to get used to. I've never, to the best of my knowledge, interacted with somebody that's used they as a pronoun aside from Darcy Donnellan when we had them on as a guest previously. Mm-hmm. So this is new to me, and so I'll do my best on this. But as soon as they gave that look, I knew what was coming.
What was coming?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Representation is important. Yes, the thing at the end, Brandon, I know you were talking, is heavy-handed, to put it nicely, but I don't think it's any worse than the scene in TNG's Symbiosis where Tasha Yar is explaining why drugs are bad. So
yeah, that's a cringeworthy scene. That's a totally cringeworthy scene.
Well, okay, I know.
This is better than that.
Let me just say, I know, Brendan, you had messaged us you had an issue with, particularly the ending scene with Culber and Stamets.
Right, so here, let me explain it, right, so that it comes off properly, okay? So that last scene, we get no information out of that final scene with Culber and Stamets, and I wasn't sure about bringing this up.
Yes, we do.
I disagree.
Okay, so then we'll
go ahead.
Okay, so, but in that scene, so the problem that I had with this is, I didn't have any problem when Stamets is like, okay, you've told me what you wanted, and now I know. Yeah. So that's fine. Mm-hmm. But at the end, when Culber comes in there and they're talking, we get this short scene. It's like 90 seconds long or whatever. And I counted it out. In 45 seconds, they refer to Adira as they or them 10 times in a 45-second period. And to me, it just, the writing of it, it just felt like, here's an instructional video on how to use the pronoun they or them properly. And it just, the writing was very awkward to me, and the delivery of the lines was very awkward to me. I mean, as a person who I just said and stumbled, I need to learn, I need to practice. I mean, it's going to take me a little bit of time to get used to this, not because I don't want to. It's just I've never experienced it before. I've said that for me, I still have trouble thinking of they as something other than plural, and I was trying to have a conversation with my daughter about this, and in the same scene, I'm using they to describe Culber and Stamets, and trying to use they to describe one person in the same sentence, right? And I'm just stumbling over it because it's new to me. But it's just, the scene just didn't work for me because it's like, we're going to pause now to use they or them a bunch of times so you know what to do going forward. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because I took the scene in a different way. And in a certain in-universe way. I think you're thinking about it in terms of like the writers want to push forward, like use they, them, and all that. The way that I took this scene was that Adira has made this, really important statement of coming out as this identity, right? And Stamets knows that and has talked to Culber, and Culber knows that. And basically what I'm seeing in that scene is they're almost, and I think Culber even calls it out, like pride, it suits you. They're proud of this person, that they're almost parental figures for Adira. And actually, in the ready room, when Blue Del Barrio plays Adira and Ian Alexander, who plays Gray, were talking, they said that even like on set and as part of being part of Discovery, that Wilson Cruz and thank you, Anthony Rapp, were like parents to them, and that Blue Del Barrio was indeed kind of going through this process as the season shot of coming out to their parents as non-binary. So the way that I saw that scene was they were very proud. Someone had told them, this is what I prefer. They've heard either Adira, she, or her all their life, right? And now they're going to hear something that they haven't heard before that's really important for them. And I think also, I mean, this is an identity that in this way has been almost invisible in Star Trek before, so I can forgive them putting in a few more for that to make up for it. But I felt like in universe it was like, this is something that I want, and they're going, that Adira wants, and that it's their way of saying we respect that, and this is what we're going to do going forward. So for me, in universe, it kind of worked in that role. So that's how I felt about it. I wasn't annoyed by the number of times.
I didn't even count it just was.
I didn't even think about that until you brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess they did. And in a run of the mill conversation, you might say, you might mix it up like Adira and they or them or whatever. But to me, it just felt like a respectful thing to do, and to acknowledge like, this is important to you, and this is how we're going to be going forward. So
I really like that interpretation. I think originally I also felt like, well, this is just the writers like winking at us, and there might be maybe it's I don't know, the writing was a bit strange, but thinking of it, I mean, basically I was kind of thinking like Brandon Ware was, the writers were trying to put this in, not as to teach us or anything, but just to like,
it's for teaching the audience, right? Because again, as a person who needs to learn this too, like I need practice and I need to be more exposed to this. It just was awkward, but it's not just for getting used to it for them. It's for the audience, because I'm not the only person who's new to this. There's going to be a lot of people that are watching Star Trek. I mean, we've got Star Trek quote-unquote fans who are upset that we got gay people on this show, right? So, like, there's a lot of people who are going to be having a concept issue trying to address this they, them as a gender, right? As to refer to as a gender. You're going to have a lot of people with pushback on this one, and so it is something that we need to have a scene like that, but it was so awkward to me, the whole scene. Okay. Sorry to interrupt, Peter. Sorry.
Well, I think I was trying to figure out what I was thinking, I guess. It felt like the writers were winking at us, like, hey, we're using it. We're using the word. That's how it felt like to me. But then, Justin, what you said made it like so much better. And the scene just works amazingly well. If I think of it as Culber and Stamets encouraging Adira, encouraging her in their identity. Yeah. So that's amazing. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm glad I heard that. That's good. Yeah.
Chrissy?
I did read it as very parental. Uh-huh. And the thing that caught me was Stamets putting his jacket over them. Mm-hmm. And I wonder at that point, it's not an unusual plot device. It's not an unusual thing to do in real life, where if you want to encourage somebody about something or make them feel good about something, you talk about it with the way my mother says, behind their back, in front of their face, So maybe there's an idea of they're not totally asleep, and we can be encouraging in this way. Mm-hmm. But I thought it also was interesting because there's that line toward the beginning. Culber is dealing with Georgiou, and she says something to the effect of, if you keep doing this, I'll kill your children, or something like that. And he says, well, if I had time, I'd have children.
Yeah.
And so then you have, and Stamets you look at and go, you know what? Culber decided that children were not going to be a thing because Stamets is not going to be a good parent. And there's a change there. And I think we're seeing that, and that the scene also does serve to show that. Mm-hmm. Wow. I was a little bothered by the idea that, well, not bothered. I wonder if Adira is aware of how much Culber knows, that Stamets has talked to him about it that much.
I think Adira would make the assumption, like,
but
these two people are a couple. They're just going to talk about stuff.
Are they okay with it? That's all. It doesn't seem like there's a problem.
But,
it occurred
interesting.
To me. So.
But there wasn't anything where Adira was like, hey, Stamets, I'm going to tell you this. Don't tell anybody else. There wasn't anything like that. It was just like, you're the first person I've told besides Gray. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see where that goes with Adira. I think it's quite interesting. So, Chrissy, you had a little Chrissy's History Corner.
Yeah,
so
just popped up while I was talking about the incapacity of emperors and kings. The short version, okay. Henry VI of England comes to the throne when he is all of 8 months old in 1422. His father had just a few years earlier won the Battle of Agincourt and had basically taken over France. This is the 100 Years' War. And And he hadn't quite taken over France as so much as he was recognized as the French king's heir, and that his heirs would be the kings of France. Now, Henry V dies, and then the King of France, Charles VI, dies shortly thereafter. So there's the question of who is in charge of France is still contested, because Charles has an adult son who capable of taking over, as opposed to this 8-month-old baby across the channel, right? So fade out, fade in. Okay. Henry comes into adulthood. He does very poorly with the war, with the 100 Years' War, and England ends up losing. And that happens with the Battle of Castillon on the 17th of July in 1453. The first week of August in 1453, Henry VI goes into a catatonic state that lasts for the next 15 months. And during that time, his wife is delivered of a son who, for all intents and purposes, could be king at that point if need be, with a regency council. And they have one of his cousins, Richard, the Duke of York, who is the grandfather of the infamous Richard, Duke of York, and then later king. And he takes over while Henry is ill, incapable, whatever you want to call it. And then as soon as Henry's well again, he steps back. I don't want power. Go ahead. You're feeling better. And then this happens again with Henry a year and a half later. And he's out of commission for another 6 or 8 months. And at that point, the Parliament is looking around going, you know what? We don't want a baby as king, and we also don't want this person who seems to be incapacitated half the time as king. So we're going to try to put somebody else in charge. So they actually disinherit Henry's son, who's 2, and that makes his mother very unhappy, as you might imagine.
This royal stuff is so crazy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. This is, by the way, if this sounds familiar, this is part of what inspired Game of Thrones for George R. R. Martin, but part of, yeah. Right. So the short version, and if I get to it, is that this ends up causing the last parts of the Wars of the Roses. You have another Edward, who is the son of the Duke of York. He comes in, he becomes Edward IV. He forces Henry to abdicate because of his illness. And after the second time, he did not come back completely. He was not well. He was not capable of ruling, just so that everybody's clear on that. And then he ended up dying. He was probably killed, but that's a whole other thing, because he was potentially a problem, So, yeah, so that just popped into my head about how much in a not mirror universe, an illness of that type in a ruler can be so very damaging and so very causing of so much upheaval, because by the end of this is when Henry VII, Henry Tudor, comes to the throne. And that's how we end up with the Tudors on the throne at the end of the Wars of the Roses. So Henry VI, interesting character.
Yeah. Wow. That is really interesting. Thank you. Yeah. all that stuff. So as we usually do, I want to talk about some canon connections. I'll just go through some quick ones here, which I thought were interesting. So Oser uses the measurement of hecapates, which is a Bajoran measurement. That has me really interested. We've talked about the Bajoran exchange, and we saw Bajoran die in Scavengers. I don't know. Are there going to be more Bajorans or whatever? But they're using Bajoran measurements. Another thing is, Trek Movies said there's a map in Vance's office that shows a Klingon zone and a Cardassian zone. So, interesting. Maybe we'll see them. I don't know. When Oser is on, who was it? Wuhan, I think it is. You might have to cut that out. But anyway, when Oser is on this planet with her nephew, she's holding up a badge that looks like a Picard badge. So another thing that's interesting is Oser's ship is named the Viridian, and that's a color that mixes green and blue, which seems appropriate for Orion's green and Andorian's blue. So that's actually a nice little thing. And
it's actually the shade Viridian 3.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Another thing is, so when Discovery has this method of amplifying this thing that the brothers are doing on the planet, what they're referencing is when they made the Vohari happen for all the Kelpians and the Sound of Thunder. That was the last time they used an electromagnetic signal like that to amplify something. Trekor found that Dr. Kolber has a container of dermaline gel in his sickbay, which is something used to treat burns that you saw on the NX-01 on Enterprise and also on Voyager. I wanted to talk about one other thing. Hopefully it'll make you laugh. So in this episode where Saru is trying to like figure out what his catchphrase is, and they'd go through execute, hit it, manifest, carry on, and all that, and it doesn't seem to work. It definitely made me think of Captain Freeman in Lower Decks with her warp me and trying to figure that out. So I actually came up with some suggestions for Saru that can maybe make it to his time. Actually, a couple of them from Twitter. Somebody said make it spin, which I like, or just go. And the ones I came up with are spin it, make it spore, shroom it, spore me, and mushroom time. So
I got one too.
Maybe you'll go for one of those.
Mushroom time.
Mushroom time. Yeah. Go ahead.
I tweeted out, it should be spank it.
Oh, no. Oh, probably
sure,
not.
Why not?
One other thing. I noticed something that I think is an error in the episode that I'm surprised you didn't bring up, Brandon. So when the brothers are on the planet, Book and Kahim, and Burnham is up on the Discovery, and they can hear what Burnham's saying, but nobody has a comm badge between the two of them. Did you notice that?
You can see.
I was thinking maybe it's hidden, but Burnham had hers on the outside. Anyway, maybe it's not an error. So that's the stuff I came up with.
I didn't. I was too busy rolling my eyes.
Her comm badge isn't just a
Brandon.
comm badge; it's indicative of who she is or who she represents. Whereas if you just need a comm, just to hear something, you can have an implant behind your ear or something.
Okay, that works for me, but it was rare. That bothered me. Okay, so anyway, those are the canon connections I came up with. So let's actually go around for some final thoughts. So Peter, kind of your final thoughts to wrap things up on what you think of the episode.
Yeah, so actually there is another connection to real science that we didn't get to.
Please.
So I'll mention real quickly. It's a screen cap of Bryce showing the planet facts of Kwai-Jan. And you probably saw some of it on Twitter. And almost all those numbers are for Venus, our own Venus.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Except for one of them, which actually two of them sort of, it's first of all, the spin period is that of Earth, 23 whatever hour, 23 point not whatever hours. And the length of year is like 500 days. And the problem here is that if you go through the calculations, you can actually show that the mass of the Kwai-Jan star is super low, and the planet would have a temperature of like minus 200 Celsius, minus 300 Fahrenheit, if you just do all the physics. And it turns out it's because the length of year they used is basically the wrong one for Venus. Venus is like 200 something days. If they used that, it was fine. They used the period with respect to Earth, essentially, how it interacts with Earth. And so, anyway, I thought that was just a really cool thing since I'm a planetary scientist.
Yeah, and also, maybe it was even today or yesterday as we record this on Sunday the 6th, but Mike Wong on his Strange New Worlds podcast had like a whole breakdown of it, and how it's almost exactly like Venus, but not quite, and what that means, and so that's really cool. But yeah, it's cool when they have those graphics and you can look at the real numbers.
We need to make this go viral so that they'll fix it for you the way that James Cameron fixed the stars in Titanic for Dr. Tyson.
There you go. Change that 500 number to 200 and you're good.
Easy fix.
You're good, yeah.
It's all computer generated.
I don't think you can actually see it in the episode either.
So really, yeah. Chrissy, final thoughts?
I'll just reiterate, I hope we don't end up with a Federation having lost the potential of being peacekeepers, and that makes everything lawless, because that just feels a little too on the nose.
I don't know if that's where they're going, but
I hope it's not. But other than that, bring on next week.
Okay. I know, Brendan, you're looking forward to Cronenberg next week, but you do have to sum up your thoughts about this week again.
I give this episode a 1. I mean, I'm so glad that I'm done talking with this episode. I had a really good time talking with you guys. Just a couple final thoughts that we didn't really have a spot for. I thought the Saru coming up with his slogan was wonderful, golden. I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Good.
So that was a really fun part of the episode. Anybody else think that Book's going to be wearing a Starfleet uniform at the end of next week's episode?
Not at the end of next week's episode, but maybe later on.
Yeah.
End of the season, I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay. And then the other eye-rolling part about all this new Star Trek is, oh, look at the alien doing the gross alien things. Linus is shedding. It's so gross. Just like when Linus sneezed all over the guy. Just like when Keenser sneezed all over the guy. Gross aliens do gross alien things in this universe because gross aliens
It's not gross.
are gross.
It's very endearing. I like it. It's endearing. But
Actually,
it
it makes perfect sense biologically. If he's a reptile, he's going to be shedding on a regular basis.
Yes, I know. But it's just another example of gross aliens doing gross things.
But I think Linus has been more for comic relief than anything else. I want to know more about him. Yeah. So I can totally see that.
Don't complain about Linus. Him showing up is when Tilly was a little less comic relief. Remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was in the first episode of season 2, so.
Oh, that's true.
And he sneezed all over that guy.
That's right. Him showing up more.
That's all I got. Justin, it's your turn. Hit it!
Yeah, that doesn't work. Try mushroom time. So yeah, I think as I said at the top, I like this episode overall. There were a few things that didn't work, like Osira and some of the Quajon stuff, but I thought it was solid. I liked it, and I'm looking forward. Very intrigued by next week. Can't wait until we can talk about the spoilery thing that we learned this week and can't talk about. So yeah, let's bring it on. And yeah, there's a 2-parter that starts next week, so that's interesting.
Unless it's like the other.
No, it does say part 1 and part 2. But yeah. So Peter, thanks so much for joining us for the discussion today. Let our listeners know where they can find you online and if there's any upcoming work or anything you want people to know about related to what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had so much fun in this discussion. I hope to come back one day. And I guess the only place now these days that I'm online a lot is Twitter. So there I'm at Planetary Gal, all one word. And in terms of things coming up, well, I have a lot of planetary science papers waiting to be published. So if you go to my Twitter, I will tweet out all the papers and try to have it in digestible chunks. So feel free.
Props to you for not having it behind a paywall too.
No, that's terrible.
Those journals that do that. So
I don't know. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's gonna be on the journal, but luckily we also have the archive.
Right.
We also have the archive, which is
cool.
Free for all.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm sure we'll have you on again to talk about another episode of the fountain of Star Trek that we're going to be getting. So
thank you so much.
Fountain of Star Trek. Oh, awesome. God, okay, somebody needs to make a podcast with that name. Fountain of Star Trek.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, Brandon, where can people find you when you're not telling people to spank it? Oh, that sounds terrible. I shouldn't even say that.
I'm leaving it in. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. I've been quiet for the last week or two because my iPad's in the shop, so it's very hard to get a hold of me. But Twitter at Brandon Matella, and you can find me on House of Fincher, which we're recording tonight. Mank is finally out. So we're recording our episode of Mank tonight, and then that will transition next week into House of Nolan as we go through Christopher Nolan's work. So Thursday, tune in for House of Fincher when we talk about Mank, and then next Thursday will be the Following by the name of the movie is Following by Christopher Nolan. You can also find me on the Fandom Podcast Network with a show called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast with my friends Chris and Tom. We cover all of Hitch's works in chronological order, and you can also find me on this network with Franchise Fatigue, which is a show about movies, remakes, and sequels.
Awesome. To think about what I want to say next. So, Chrissy, where can people find you when you're not wondering about Osira's really long green nails? I saw that and I was like, anyway, she has really long nails. Go ahead.
Yes, because that would be indicative of someone who doesn't have to do manual labor. All right, so I'm on Twitter at The Goddess Olivia. That is TheGoddessLivia, where I tweet about Star Trek history and leftist politics. And you can also follow my work as an historian by bookmarking the webpage my fellow historian partner Jason and I run, History with the Szilagys, which is at historywiththeszilagys.org. And Szilagys is spelled Szilagys.
Okay, awesome. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm at TrekFan4747, where I tweet about nothing but Star Trek. And you can find me in our Facebook group, the Federation Council Chambers, where we talk about every episode of this podcast and other UFP podcasts. So thank you very much for tuning in to Infinite Diversity. Thank you to our executive producers, Ken Tripp, Tony Robinson, and Zach Moore. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Tony Robinson for the awesome show art. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and please subscribe there. If you want to reach out, you can find the network on Twitter at UFP Earth or on our show's Twitter handle of @IDIC And as I mentioned, we also have a Facebook group for UFP called the Federation Council Chambers. Hope you'll join us there. Or you can email us at infinitediversity@ufp.earth. So on the next episode, we'll be talking about Episode 9 of Season 3 of Discovery, Terra Firma, Part 1. And until then, peace and long life.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.
So,
But in isolation from that, what do you think of like the Rin character, like and all the stuff we've seen of him?
well, right now I'm frustrated with the character because I'm like, I'm tired. I'm tired of this. We don't trust the Federation because the Federation is evil. I'm like, I don't know. Like, oh, sorry.
What is that? Sounds like a Star Trek sound.
It is. My tree just turned on. I got it on a timer, and so it turned on, and then the tree topper just started talking. So I'll edit that out.